Priti Patel starts to drain the swamp of the Home Office, and we expose the scandals of the civil service. Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to talk about the latest update we have from the saga of the Home Office and Priti Patel and all this weird drama that's been going around between the civil servants and the Home Secretary. As you guys know, the Home Sec, obviously Priti, has been giving us all these promises to fix all the problems that we have, from the migrant boat situation to the point-based system, Australian-style immigration system that we're going to be having. So everything else has been going around in the country, the policing situation with the Met, especially in London. But a lot of stuff has happened that didn't allow her to do these things. Now we know why. Because the Home Office, some of the junior civil servants, but primarily senior civil servants, have been plotting to get rid of her because apparently she's a tough manager. We know the story. Now, the latest we have is that we've discovered the truth about these allegations and how Priti Patel is now starting the reform that she's been meaning to do for the past few months. It's actually happening. Firstly, she wants the civil servants to actually do their job properly, but also in terms of the performance that they haven't actually had, because as most of you know, in terms of civil service and the public sector, some of them, they don't necessarily have the reviews, performance reviews that people in the private sector have. So the Home Secretary is going to be drawing up new plans that has already been agreed with the Permanent Secretary to, one, introduce performance reviews to actually see who's doing their job, and two, sometimes you're going to have to work weekends. Also, you're going to actually have to communicate with the Home Sec, because what we recently had is that all these allegations that against Priti, they never told Priti Patel herself. She wasn't even informed about these allegations, which is quite interesting. So these changes, firstly, have now been agreed between Priti and obviously Matthew Rycroft, who's the Permanent Secretary, and the idea is to have this situation where Priti has said she's not going to be shouting around, allegedly, but at the same time her civil servants need to actually do their job properly. The issue is that it emerged this weekend that not one of the allegations had been put to Ms. Patel, while she had never met or spoken to Sir Alex Allen, the Whitehall civil servant who carried out this 8-month investigation into Priti. So none of the allegations were actually directly communicated to her. Two, she wasn't even been contacted by Sir Alex, who was doing the investigation. So I'm not really sure what these people want, because when the story came out last week about Priti Patel again and how she has to apologise, it was because it came out of nowhere. This investigation didn't get anywhere. We discovered she wasn't actually being that bossy because everybody around her knew how she is as a manager. It's mainly because the Home Office historically has been a mess as a place, and we're going to expose them. As I said, we have all the historic and recent scandals of this department. So, firstly, one of the sources has now said that the national security is not a 9 to 5 office job, basically, adding that on some weekends, Priti Patel had found that she was driving the ship completely, and that is now changing. One of the former advisors has said that the snowflakes in the civil service would regularly complain about working even 5 minutes more than their allotted hours. That's true. I've been to certain departments for various reasons in the past, and when it gets to a certain time, some of them is 4:30, 4:30 p.m., some of them is 5 p.m., everybody leaves at the same time. It's like they're literally sitting there, looking at the clock, and like, I'm done. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So I'm not really sure how that works, because that doesn't really happen in the private sector, depending on what your job is. Now, the chief complaint appears to have to be having to work over a weekend when they're on call, despite this being their job. Okay, so you complain about something that's already your job. You've already signed a contract. So that's the biggest thing that is now changing, thanks to Priti Patel and the Permanent Secretary, who is much better than Philip Rodnam. Now, let's talk about the Home Office and the scandals that they've been having historically, but also recently. And guess what happens? The actual cabinet ministers and the Home Secretaries are the ones who have to apologise for the mess that the civil servants create. And this isn't the first time. You remember when recently the Nigel Farage did this investigation into the migrant boats and discovered how Serco as a company has been um, transporting the illegal migrants into certain hotels in certain areas, and also discovered one of the hotels was actually in Priti Patel's constituency. We discovered Priti had no idea, and this was actually an error made by the Home Office as well as Serco, obviously. That's one. We also remember Windrush. We remember how it was Amber Rudd and Theresa May as Home Secretaries and then obviously Prime Minister who had to apologise for what happened with the Windrush era citizens. In reality, what we discovered is that this mess was happening from the end of the Labour government until obviously even throughout the whole most of the Conservative government post 2010. This was a scandal created by admin and civil servants, but who gets the blame? Obviously, it's the politicians, and they should, by the way, because they are that's their job. They are the bosses, and they have to respond. But at the same time, the actual people who make these errors, sometimes it's errors and mistakes, and sometimes it's happened where it's on purpose. They don't apologize. Nothing actually changes. We also remember when, after the whole situation, when the Windrush scandal was exposed and the government were trying to fix it, then the Home Office again messed up the data and then they had to apologize. So this is not the first time the Home Office have been incompetent. Do you want more? We have more. Next, we had a situation where a few years ago a minister had to apologize. Again, ministers doing it, to a couple because they were wrongly accused by the Home Office and the civil servants of their marriage not being real, but being a sham. Because this was one of the obviously part of the couple, one of them wasn't a migrant, so the admin and the civil servants just assumed for no reason that this is a fake wedding, which fake marriage, which it wasn't, by the way. And then that's another thing. We have more. We had Sajid Javid, when he was Home Secretary, being forced to apologise again over for immigrants who were being forced to take DNA tests. Do you know who did that? Civil servants in the Home Office who this program that was created for no reason, who were being they were forcing the migrants to actually take the DNA test to prove that they were entitled to settle in the UK. The person that had to be forced to apologise was the Home Secretary at the time, who was Sajid Javid. We have more. You remember when Jackie Smith, the Home Secretary under the Labour government back in 2008, had to apologise for the knife crime claims. So the figures were released about the number of the teenagers admitted to hospital, and that was a mess. This is about people's lives were affected by this. The data, the numbers, everything wrong. The whole thing was a mess. Jackie Smith had to apologise. She didn't do it. It was a civil servant. Again, I'm not saying that the politicians shouldn't do anything. They are responsible in terms of their job and their role. Someone has to actually answer. But the problem with the Home Office, it goes deeper than your usual department where people make mistakes or a politician messes up something. We have another one as well. Let's go with this one before we continue with the stories, because again, back in 2007 under the Labour government, one of the ministers had to apologise again for a mess that was created because of the Home Office, essentially for not knowing sooner about the Home Office failure to update the police records of Britons convicted abroad. So they definitely have an issue with data and spreadsheets, and but so this has been going on for decades and decades. Nothing's been fixed. So every now and then, the Home Secretaries are forced to come out to apologise and they just move on. This is the whole point of Priti Patel trying her best now to introduce these reforms, to have these direct contacts with these people to stop it, to stop this mess. And speaking of all this mess, we're going to have in the next video, going to talk about Nigel Farage and his new Reform UK party, his plans, because he's already started his first campaign against the current situation. And also we're going to discuss the MPs who are getting a pay rise by an independent body, whilst everybody else in the country is being hurt by the financial recession and the economic recession and financial situation across the country. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification button next to it, and don't forget to get your I believe in Britain. Merchandise, we have the hoodies and the t-shirts and coffee mugs and everything else. The link is in the description. As you always, if you are a member of the channel, you will get a special discount. As usual, I'll put the discount code on the community tab of the YouTube channel. Make sure to check it out. Get your merchandise. I'm Tousi, and I'll see you guys in the next video.